this morning, and agriculture employs more than 70% of Ugandans' population, yet just a small part of this comprises of the youth, who are interestingly the most affected by unemployment. Now, government has over the years struggled to make agriculture attractive to this segment of the population in vain. Now, several organizations, in partnership with the European Union and other stakeholders, have embarked on a project to specifically support youth in agribusiness. We have a conversation this morning, and I am joined by a representative of one of these organizations, Dr. Edward Isingoma. He is the managing partner at Pearl Capital Partners, and he's here to answer all those questions and also to get to know, so what are they doing to ensure that the farmer actually gets value for money? So he is here with me, and how about you kick it off? And the hashtag is morning at NTV. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for making time.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the youth and agriculture. We know that the unemployment rate is day by day going high, and I can just say skyrocketing, so to speak. And we've been saying that the only place that we can assimilate a majority of them, or the only sector that can actually assimilate a majority of them, is agriculture. But it's seemingly not attractive to them. So what are the reasons? You are on ground. What are some of these reasons? Do we borrow it back from the education curriculum that doesn't entice us from the get-go, or what do we attribute this to?
Thank you so much. I think the way we look at it at Pearl Capital Partners is that most of Ugandan youth and smallholder farmers actually do not get involved in commercial agriculture. So the moment commercialization of agriculture is not commercialized, you then will continue having people struggling with unemployment and people actually doing agriculture for the sake of doing it, but not for the actual economic benefit of it. So what we do as Pearl Capital Partners, and we've gone into partnership with the EU and IFAD and a few other investors, Open Society Foundation and FCA, to set up an agri-focused fund, because many other economies that depend on agriculture have agricultural banks.
Correct.
But we don't have agricultural banks here. So we've set up an agri-focused fund for agriculture, and its focus is both social impact and financial impact. So that then means we are providing alternative financing solutions for agribusinesses that actually work with smallholder farmers and the youth and the women and the rural communities to actually commercialize agriculture.
So what
and that's where we come in.
Right. So what you're saying is maybe just what tops the cream of the reasons why the youth are not engaging in agriculture is the lack of financing.
One is lack of financing, and then two is the off-takers.
Correct.
Yeah. If they grow crops, where are they going to sell them? Are they going to be guaranteed of markets? Are they going to be surely guaranteed that the prices, contract finance farming, are they going to be guaranteed of where to sell the product and at what price? Are they going to make money? Recently you saw the maize crisis. Yes. Maize prices went rocket down 200, 300 shillings a kilo. The farmers and the youth involved in farming for maize as a commercial activity lost out. But then those who were working with some of our investees that have contract financing farming were able to still sell their maize at double the price. So that then means they actually were practicing maize farming as a commercial activity.
Right.
And so what we are doing is supporting various agribusinesses in various sectors to actually work with the youth, the smallholder farmers, the rural communities in commercializing agriculture.
So just to simplify this, is you provide financing,
correct,
not for the smallholder farmers, but for the agribusinesses.
Correct.
That's your entry point.
Yes.
So
and we require those agribusinesses to work with smallholder farmers.
All right.
Otherwise, they don't get our financing.
Tell us more about that.
And we actually go as far as measuring how are your smallholder farmers benefiting, what prices are they getting, are they taking their children to school, what are their livelihoods. We kind of measure all this and go in to support it. Not only just supporting, asking them to spend money on working with it, but we also have a grant facility from the European Union that allows us to go in and support some grant capital to train these smallholder farmers. And that is interesting. What we are seeing out there in terms of some of the projects we have invested in, we are seeing smallholder farmers, youth being engaged in farming moringa, and all the moringa is being bought by the company that we have invested in, and then all being exported out to the US. But the actual price they are getting is enormously well enough for them to do very well, much better than what they would have done otherwise, riding borders and doing these other inferior jobs.
Dr. Edward, let's just, try and draw this map so our viewers can get to understand it. So we have Pearl Capital Partners over here.
Correct.
They work directly, their entry point to change the agricultural sector, pretty much the entry point is with agribusinesses.
Correct.
But the criteria and the rationale, or pretty much the threshold for the agribusiness to get financing from you guys, is to ensure that they have a social economic impact on the smallholder farmers.
Excellent. Yes.
All right. So where you come in over here and you're saying that then there's a caveat between this agribusiness guys and you, such that for them to get financing, you are assured without any reasonable doubt that they are making an impact on the smallholder farmers.
Excellent.
So let me ask you this question. When it comes to agriculture, and the reason as to why many, like you said, we were having this conversation before we went on air, is a majority of the young people who in one way or another were involved in agriculture. It got to a point whereby they got totally discouraged, and the little money they had, they went on, purchased a boda, came to the city and started operations, pretty much saying that agriculture doesn't have money, it doesn't have sense, so to speak. So at what point do you ensure that this agribusinesses actually, because you're talking about the coin, this agribusinesses actually directly support the smallholder farmer at the point of providing market, and not just a market, but giving them the right value for their money? Excellent.
So when we get involved, I'll just take one step, how we work. We've set up a fund called Yield Uganda Investment Fund. And this is the fund where our various investors I mentioned have put capital together. And this capital is all impact capital, meaning it can only be invested in businesses that are working with smallholder farmers.
Okay.
So once we work with these businesses, what we then do is, in part of the covenants of the investments we make, we actually require the agribusinesses to have contractual obligations to smallholder farmers that they work with. So we actually work to set up those contractual obligations. We work to engage and train these smallholder farmers on financial inclusion areas for them to appreciate their costs of production, how to get genuine inputs, how much is their cost of production and how much is the profit they're making. And also get to educate them about, if the business is buying off that produce, how much is the business actually going to make when they do the value addition and processing. And so that the farmers have power through the knowledge they actually get and the transparency they get when we actually work with them. And for some of the businesses, we've had to develop new models where, for example, one of the projects we just launched last week, the Moringa project in Masindi, where the farmers actually, the smallholder farmers who are constantly supplying, actually get to be paid a monthly fee as though they were employed like you here at NTV. And so that then means at the end of the season, once the crop is got and the outturn is all measured and they're getting their paid, then they have just an additional increment on the monthly fee that they're actually getting from working on their gardens. And what does that mean? That technically means these smallholder farmers, including the youth who work with this business, are excited that they actually are earning a fixed monthly fee, and then at the end of the season, every 6 months, they're earning a premium on the Moringa products that they've produced. And so that is an excellent model. So you are able to measure what is the smallholder farmer getting, how much premium are they getting for their crop, and can they economically be sustainable and run this as a commercial activity.
You know, this model is amazing. You can imagine a smallholder farmer now getting to understand that, hey, by the way, you're going to be getting,
every month it comes to the mobile money.
Imagine that.
And that's exciting.
Imagine that. And still, after the season, there's money coming through to you. Now, let's get to this, and just for people to understand, because I'm sure there are many agribusinesses watching us. We also have a big number of smallholder farmers watching us. Where do you have your footprint? Where is your footprint located? Like, which regions have you been able to impact, so to speak?
Oh, good. Excellent. So some of the things we've done is, for example, we've been here for 13 years. We're based in Kampala, and we've done so many investments across the East African region. But in Uganda specifically, we've done investments in various agribusinesses. For example, we've done investments in Be Natural Uganda Limited, which is a honey processor out in Arua, working with smallholders and the youth involved. We've done an investment in Fika Seeds, which is an input business out of Masindi, which again is producing certified hybrid seed production and distributions. Again, the youth get involved because then they are able to get high yielding inputs. We've done investments with the Yield Uganda Investment Fund itself over the last 2 years. We've done interesting investments. We've done an investment in Sesako soya production and processing. Again, they are having majority of their outgrowers and smallholder farmers as youth involved. We've done an investment in a coffee cooperative in the central region, where we have smallholder farmers in an association of cooperative, about 3,600 of them, working to produce coffee for export. We've done an investment in the moringa business I just mentioned out of Masindi. We've done an investment in KK Foods, which is a fresh fruit and vegetable exporter with tens of thousands of smallholder farmers, which are all across the central region. So we are in all the various sectors, but it's got to be agriculture. So we only do agri-business investments.
All right, and we're still counting. But someone will be asking, okay, fine, let me first touch on the, agri-business guys, because they're the people who, that's your entry point. They're the people who help you to link to the smallholder farmers. So are you the one who reaches out, or they're the people who reach out to you? Who goes first? Who calls the shot?
Wow, it's interesting. It's a combination of both, but in the very beginning it was always us reaching out. Over 10 years down the road, Ugandans, they will always learn by seeing. They've seen their peers all getting alternative financing that is not commercial financing to grow agri-businesses, and they've reached out. So we really have so many that reach out now. And then we also get out where we are seeing projects that have a big social impact potential.
Correct.
Because many of those that are purely commercial focused, they will get access from the bank. They have the security. They will be able to get good terms. Some of them are well connected in our economy, as you know. But then those who are working with the rural smallholder farmers, many of them will struggle, and some of them don't even know that there is alternative financing. You could finance agriculture through private equity. You could finance it through alternative microfinancing models, mezzanine debt type of things. But then for us, we then reach out and look, oh, that product is working with smallholder farmers. They have an interesting model. The social impact is great. That we will want to reach out and work out something that is efficient for them.
And they also have a potential to grow.
Excellent.
Well. All right. Okay. And still talking about agricultural financing. It's been a hard nut to crack, even for government. Conversations about commercializing agriculture, having agriculture that is not totally dependent on rain. We've been having that conversation on how we can embrace technology to ensure that agriculture still, farmers can still bear the yield without having to rely on the rainy seasons and the seasons and the patterns that are there. Now with global warming, we can never rely on this at 100%. But when you talk about agricultural financing and the options that are there, now you are in this side of the pitch where you're providing alternative financing. Just for us to get to understand, why should I engage you and not engage a commercial bank? What's the relationship there? Because once you give me, of course, some funding, commercial banks will give you X interest rate, which most of the times, it's not bearable, especially for small or medium, businesses that are looking into growth. So what's your competitive advantage with regards to the same?
Okay, I think one is, why should people look at us as an option other than commercial banks?
Yes.
The main thing is that we provide tailor-made growth capital for agribusiness that are working with smallholder farmers. What does that mean? That means we have to look at both the financial return and the social impact return. And combined together, it therefore means that our financial return expectations are much lower than what commercial bank return expectations are. But then the social return benefits that agribusinesses make are not rewarded. But then for us, we're able to reward that because we value it. And this is why we're able to give sufficient structures that are relevant for agribusinesses. In some instances, some of agri products, like people who are growing avocados and things like that,
right,
they'll take 5-6 years before they make any coin. And we are able to give capital and wait for that much. So we have patient capital, we have well-structured, aligned structures of capital relevant for agribusinesses. We are on the ground support, we have a network of knowledge, experience on the ground. We have investors that are very patient with us and are looking at development and growth. For example, NSSF is one of our investors. Then while they are saying, look, we'll get a return here, but even if it's not as material a return, what is important is that there is a development aspect to this fund. This is why NSSF has come and invested in us, not because they want to make so much financial return. So likewise, the other thing that we do is we add value other than cash. We bring in the business development services grant, which we're able to deploy and support these businesses with things they would otherwise not be able to do. For example, train the farmers, quality control, certifications, internal controls and systems and processes. So we get in and become partners with these agribusinesses for growth.
To what extent do you support the agribusinesses to venture into external markets? Do you touch those waters, or you let them to grow on themselves?
No, we do, because some of our business development services grant money can actually support agribusinesses unlock export potential. For example, we've just made an investment in a business called Chemical Laboratories that does is an international accredited laboratory that does testing and for all agri products going out of Uganda for the export market. And it's the only international accredited laboratory here that once they do that, that automatically means markets in Europe are all opened up for these agribusinesses that are doing fruits and vegetables and fish and all these products.
Right, right.
So we actually get to even go to those sectors and support to unlock the international market potential.
So, Dr. Edward, you've done an amazing job in terms of, explaining why you and not the commercial bank, so to speak. But are you in a position to give us the interest rate, so to speak? Because that's where the catch is. Catch 22, that's where it lies. So, what's your interest rate, so to speak?
Yes, so when we invest debt, in other words, when we give loans, of course, interest rate is usually our interest rates are not fixed, so our interest rates are really subjected to the risk that we actually take. But I must say, for example, Uganda shilling debt investments are all having interest rates somewhere between 10 and 15%, whereas commercial banks are probably around the 20% mark.
Right.
So, but our preference is usually not doing debt investments. We prefer to do equity investments, where actually the agribusinesses don't have to pay or service the equity instruments. The equity instruments is where you buy some shares in the company, give them capital, they don't have to pay you, and then they grow the business. After 5, 6, 7 years time, you actually then value the company. What if they've grown from a valuation of $1 million to $2 million, then you only share a percentage of that growth, and therefore it's hassle-free.
Right.
There's no impact on the cash flows, and the business is able to generate a growth that is from an equity growth perspective.
Right.
So we think agriculture should be able to be supported more with equity-like instruments rather than loans.
So as we bring this to a wrap, I'll just give you 1 second to talk to the viewers. Camera 1 is your camera. What is your parting shot? What would you like them to take home this morning?
Oh, I think there are two things. One, I think agribusiness is the way to go, and I just would re-emphasize that. And I think smallholders and the youth should embrace agriculture as a commercial activity, and therefore look to make it work. And should also appreciate that there is always going to be alternative financing structures. It's not that we'll grow agriculture by commercial bank debt alone. There are other structures that would finance agri projects that are interesting. And so good models in agriculture commercialization can attract good capital and therefore can achieve growth.
So where can they find you?
Well, our offices are in Umba Showgrounds, Lugogo.
Okay.
And the Yield Uganda Investment Fund that we've just launched is purely for Uganda alone. Our previous funds have been regional, but then the EU and IFAD and all these other investors, including NSSF, have supported us to set up the Yield Uganda Investment Fund for only Ugandan agribusinesses.
All right.
So we are available to support as much as we can. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Edward Isingoma. He is the managing partner at Pearl Capital Partners here in the country. Now you know, yes, there's alternative financing in agribusiness. So how about you get this information and run with it? Let's make it better in the agribusiness space. All right, that's it for the Techno segment. I told you that we'll be starting with Kickstarter, but we leave the best for the last. All right. We're taking a short commercial break. We'll be back with more. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
52 games, 52 updates, and one winner. Catch all the Africa Cup of Nations updates with Joel Kamari, Andrew Kabura, and Justin from the 21st of June to the 19th of July right here on NTV. The Total Africa Cup of Nations